The M1 Garand. It was due for a revamp, and now it is in the game along with the SM03 and the Pancore Jackhammer remodel. Don't forget to use the code HOLOVEMBER to claim your in-game credits. Today we will be focusing on the M1 Garand. Is it better than it was the last time? And most importantly, is it better than a Mark 14? I never used the M1 Garand before, until now. My first impression with this historical weapon is that it performs very well in close quarters, as you can fire the weapon full auto with a 20-round magazine. It's the first thing I equipped so I can compare it with the Mark 14. Obviously, full autoing is not very ideal for long-distance engagements. Even the recoil when firing 360 rounds per minute is very horrendous when compared to the Mark 14's 360 RPM, which I'll get to later in this video. It's not very good at suppressing your enemies at a long distance. However, it is worth noting that placing a 20-round magazine compromises your damage. And then you may be wondering, how does the M1 Garand start out? Well, that's a good question. I went ahead and removed all the attachments and left this weapon with no strings attached. And to my surprise, it performs very well, possibly better than the Mark 14. In 1 shots to the head and 2 shots to the torso at up to 200 studs, and 2 shots to the head or torso above 275 studs, with a fire rate of 250 rounds per minute. It's not bad. It is a direct competitor to the XK416's 7.62 variant, where it also has the same fire rate as the default M1 Garand, the only difference being the effective range. 200 studs is where the XK416 starts to fall apart. Granted, the light rifle mod for the M1 Garand isn't very happy with where it is standing, while the default Garand still reigns at that distance. Then it gets interesting at longer distances. The light rifle mod is left out in the dust, and the default Garand's supremacy is still undefeated. The auto mod has almost the same time to kill at that distance, but then again, who would want to fire full auto at that distance? I'd rather stick to the former. As for the Mark 14, it shows the M1's ammo mods that they aren't the boss of it just yet. Many of us would tap fire at a distance, knowing that it would be hard to stabilize the weapon when fired rapidly. In fact, the recoil of the M1 Garand is at best subpar against the Mark 14, which is why I personally favor the Mark 14 more. There's just so much camera shaking on the M1 Garand, even I have trouble controlling the recoil, especially on the auto mod. I pitted the 20-round auto mod against the Mark 14, and I programmed the auto clicker to fire both guns at 360 rounds per minute. At this rate, I already have trouble controlling the M1 Garand, even with some good attachments. But who knows? I may have placed a bad attachment on it already. Let me know what attachments you used on the M1 Garand in the comments down below. As for the XK416, it literally has no competition against the M1 Garand itself. Both the XK416 and the light rifle mod can punish you for aiming at the torso or the limb, to a point where Mark 14 or the default Garand becomes a better choice. It is basically chopped down to just the Mark 14 versus the M1 Garand. So, what should I pick, you may ask? Well, there are things that the M1 Garand can do that the Mark 14 cannot do, and there are certainly things that Mark 14 can do that the M1 cannot. The M1 Garand certainly gives you the big damage per shot, where aiming at the head can mean instant kill, but with the low fire rate, it's just not ideal at closer ranges, and can be very punitive if you miss your shots. The M1 Garand is of course best used when you are at longer distances, where you can easily avoid close quarter combat. If you want to get out of sticky situations, or you want to go close quarters with the M1 Garand, just use a light rifle or an extended magazine mod. Just know that your damage per shot is severely compromised when you shoot at a distance. With all that said, the M1 Garand does come at a very high cost of 7,000 in-game credits, or 499 Robux for the World War II Game Pass. The Mark 14, on the other hand, is just a good jack-of-all-trades type of rifle. It does not have full auto options, however, you can use it in close quarter combat if you have the concentration to time your trigger. And the same can be said at longer distances, where you can easily suppress an enemy with a rain of bullets. The Mark 14 can be unlocked at level 20, and this weapon is yet to have a revamp. and I can't wait to see what this game has to offer when it revamps my favorite DMR. It's no secret that I love DMRs. Credits are free, however, they are scarce. If you're looking to buy credits just to buy the M1 Garand, you might as well buy the whole World War II Game Pass instead. The price of 4,600 credits is 500 Robux, and it's not even enough to buy the M1 Garand. Besides, you can use that same 500 Robux to buy the World War II bundle, and that can get you 6 weapons and items, all of which you can use in the game. As for the time being, I'm probably going to grind the M1 Garand, due to its very satisfying one-shot headshot. And I'm certainly going to switch in between the M1 and the Mark 14. Shoot that like button if you haven't already, subscribe if you do like my content, and come hang out with me on my Discord, link in the description down below. This is KingMoyai signing off. Take it easy.